I have two younger brothers who were much younger. My father died when I was 17, and the one was 12 and one was 7 or something like that. And so I hadn't realized they had much fewer memories, excuse me, of him than I had. Excuse me. And when one of them wrote to me saying, "Could you tell us something about our dad?" Because they, as I said, much fewer memories. I thought that how to convey it was how he was with us older boys. He would take the older boys with him on a fishing holiday, trout fishing holiday, up to County Tipperary, where he'd built a tiny little cabin. And we would stay up there for several weeks and have a wonderful time roaming around the countryside. We knew everybody there and would go to one farmhouse or another and help them with the hay or do things like while he was off fishing. And I was lucky enough in this particular summer there were 3 events which really showed how he was, I suppose everybody's dad is kind of special, especially to somebody of that age. But he had these very heroic kind of things that he did in the course of our holiday, our vacation, that I was able to describe for my brothers. And one was this, in this case, my dad stopping this runaway horse in a very colorful sort of way. And every morning on this place called Ballyslatine, we would get up, we'd swim in the river, we'd swim in the nude, and then we'd come up, we'd eat breakfast outside, any chance to eat outside. In the sun, we would take it. And so here we were eating some trout and having our cups of tea. And we got the milk came from, no such thing as a refrigerator. We got it from the creamery carts of all the local farmers taking their milk to the creamery and getting paid for it and getting butter or whatever else they got for it. It's a very nice system. So early in the morning, we would hear all of these carts, coming our direction. Our little cabin was just by the river. There was a bridge over the river, so they all had to take that road. And we would go out. I would stand out there with a jug, waiting for the first cart to come along. Usually it was a man called Liam Burns, and Liam couldn't sing a note. He had a note in his head, but he didn't stop him from singing, so we'd be able to hear him singing out loud from miles away as he approached the bridge. And then he would stop and he'd give the milk and then go on. And all the family, they were all friends of ours. We knew everybody there. And one morning I was standing out there waiting for Liam, and I could hear him in the distance coming. He was singing away as usual. And then suddenly there was a change. And what I didn't know, but the change was that a wheel on this creamery cart had come off. And of course the horse got very troubled by this and went into a bolt, threw Liam off. So here's what this excerpt is from a book, a family biography I wrote some years ago called Listening to the River. And it's a book I've liked very much because it reminisces on a lot of very interesting and pleasant memories. And I tell here the story of one of the exploits of my dad. And so I tell the story here. Dress for breakfast could hardly have been less formal, usually consisting of a towel wrapped around the middle. We would sit, eat, talk, make plans. One memorable morning, we sat outside in our accustomed breakfast mode in the early sun, eating trout around the table. The kettle sang its slow but purposeful song on the fire. We were waiting for the milk to arrive before making tea. From several miles away, we could monitor the progress of the creamery cart with its distinctive concert of sounds, rhythmic rattle of metal churns, jingle of harness, gravel grind of the steel-clad wheel rims, unself-conscious tuneless song from Liam, all came floating over the morning meadows ahead of him. When it came time, I made my way to the roadside to be ready to get a jug of fresh milk from Liam as he went by. I looked up the road, waiting for the creamery cart to come round the corner, a couple of 100 yards or so up the boreen. Oddly, the sound seemed abruptly to have changed. Suddenly, from around the corner, burst the cart, an extraordinary and terrifying sight. Something disastrous had happened. A wheel had come off. Liam had been thrown and was nowhere in sight, and the horse, a magnificent grey, was in a mad bolt. It was dragging the heavy one-wheeled cart behind it and was careening down the road towards me, milk splashing wildly from the lashed-down churns, sparks flying from the axle as it dug into the road. "Daddy," I managed to scream. "Quick!" I shrank back against the wall, transfixed by the unseeing, white-eyed stare of the horse as it sped by the gate and up the hump of the bridge. At the same time, my father, clad only in the post-swim attire of a wrapped towel, leapt up in response to my cry, shot past me outside the gate and up the bridge, in hot pursuit of the bolting horse. By the time he was passing me, the towel, inadequate to the task from the outset, gave up the ghost and slipped to the boreen as if to accentuate the primal scene that was unfolding. In a flash, both horse and man were over the bridge and out of sight, but in a second or two, with a Herculean burst, he caught up with the terrified animal, grabbed the reins, and pulling all his weight on the bit in his mouth, brought the snorting, wild-eyed beast to a halt. It was a classic scene, nude with horse, from the Parthenon to Picasso, and now to at Ballyslatteen. In due course, a bruised and rueful Liam hobbled into sight, pushing his wheel before him, and before too long the cart was fixed, we had milk for our tea, and Liam was on his way, little the worse for the incident. It had its wonderfully funny side, but underneath we were all in awe of our dad and felt enormously proud of him. But modesty was an unwritten rule, and we were restrained in our subsequent rehearsings of the heroic deed. That's the story of listening to the river, or an excerpt from it. And as I said, I sent it to the letter originally to my two younger brothers, Jerome and Alan, and realized in the middle that this was a great story, and you didn't have to know my dad for it to be a great story. And so that's when I broke the rule and decided to publish my own. And I'm very glad I did. There was a certain, I don't know why I was that kind of shy about doing these things. The rule, you can feel proud of your work, and then you don't want to be vain about it. And so always sort of balance of that. But now, ever since that, my latest work is very, very, it's personal, and it's about a relationship within our family. My mother and her first cousin, who was very involved in the Irish War of Independence and in the Civil War. And it's a story that's not been told. This is a man Liam Lynch is his name, who was the head of the IRA in Ireland at that time, 1916. He was actually shot. He was killed in 1923. And the story of what it did for her, the Civil War. Everybody was very highly delighted that Ireland would have its independence, but then to be stuck in this terrible civil war afterwards, it upset the people who'd been fighting together and now opposed in this argument about how it should be. So it's a story I wanted to tell, and as I say, it's probably the most satisfying. I've liked all the things I've done, but this is the most satisfying story I've tried to do. So watch this space, you'll see it soon.